We had mentioned the executive session, we're back at the general session today. As per usual, we begin our meetings with our why. Steve suffered a stroke a couple of weeks ago. He's recovering well. Some of us have had the opportunity to talk to him privately. I think he's going to log into this meeting in between a few appointments today if he has a chance and greet us. He was under strict orders not to do any work involved in that, but he does want to say hi to everyone today, and he expects a full recovery. He wanted me to please express to all of you, not only council members, but staff and other supporting community, his appreciation for your thoughts during his recovery. At our first meeting, Steve related that about 20 years ago, he was headed into Nashville with his last few Percocet in his pocket. And he said, I was scared to death. But he related that 20 years later, he's gotten to serve on the board of medical examiners with a chronic pain condition. He's got to serve on this committee and to be involved in the mental health and substance abuse recovery for thousands of Tennesseans and be a consultant for other states as well. And one of the things he requested for us at that initial meeting, he said, I realized that I recovered and in recovery, not because of, I'm paraphrasing here, not because of moral superiority or any other thing than that. There was a system placed around him that refused to allow him to fail. And indeed, physicians in Tennessee have a greater than 95% recovery rate because there's a huge collection of resources available to physicians to recover. And his plea for us was to build an ecology around every Tennessean that they have a chance that Steve has. So I want to repeat that request from Stephen today and remind us that we're not there yet. Tennesseans, as a rule, don't have a 95% recovery rate. Wouldn't it be wonderful at the conclusion of this council's business 15 years from now, if that were the case? We're far from it, but we're working toward it. And I think that the work that we do is critically important. And so I think our why is to get to what Steve asked us to do. That's a very high rate of recovery for Tennesseans, in part because of the work of this council. If you would, I'd like to take just a few minutes for a moment of silence. Often we have a moment of silence and reflecting on those that we have lost. I would like to have this moment of silence be a moment of gratitude for those that we have not lost, for those who work, for those who help, and for those who are recovering. Let's give gratitude and thanks, if you will, for a second moment. Thank you. You have in front of you, hopefully, our minutes from our last meeting, which was December 1st. And I trust that you've had an opportunity electronically or otherwise to review those minutes. So I would entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Dr. Moore is the first. Second, I could not see.
Dr. Barrett.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? With no discussion, I'll call for the question. Mary, for roll call vote, please.
Armando Fontes, Brian Buck,
Yes.
Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yes.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Ron Cowan,
Yes.
Tim Burnett, Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Tyler Barrett,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool,
Yes.
Wayne Whitehall.
Yes.
Motion carries. Minutes are approved. We now move to some special recognition. Judge Section came in today with a fresh haircut. He's got a great vest on. My Lord, Shane looks good today. And then I realized why. He's serving, at pleasure today. I think this is his last working meeting. He does have to vote today. But we do want to thank Shane for his leadership over the last 5 years. And doing a little bit of background work. I did not involve Tommy in the background work, so this was a surface level dive. Judge Section actually established one of the early drug abuse and recovery courts in Tennessee. It served 5 counties in Tennessee: Campbell, Claiborne, Fentress, Scott, and Union counties. It's 2005. And over the years, these two intervening 2 decades, has been able to seek treatment for those who are addicted rather than just corrective or punitive action. And he's a Tennessee graduate, as an undergraduate, went to Tennessee Law School. So he's a perfect example of how our state institutions can help mold a career in a life that serves Tennesseans. Some of the statements that are recorded from the judge is that you're a 35-year-old man and you're glad that you were able to grow into a person who understood what justice is. He actually said, I'm a different man than before I became a judge. I know no better valediction for a career than that you not only change the world around you, but you work with changing person. And so I found that to be personally inspiring. Judge Section, we want to thank you for your service to the state. This is not a high salary job. I think all of us could triple our salary and the state would still be okay. 3 times 0 is still 0 the last I checked. But there is, I believe, gratification in knowing that your work is expanded, not beyond 5 counties, but all 95 now have been blessed by your example and your leadership over the last 5 years. So we have something else for your shelf. This says, deepest gratitude, your dedicated service to the state of Tennessee, your leadership, commitment, and integrity made a lasting impact for those affected by the opioid crisis and hazardation service. So let's give Shane a hand today. That was purposeful. We're going to keep it recorded. Shane, we don't have time for 45 minutes, but we'd love if you'd like to say anything in your defense.
Just a few words. It is a very humbling process, not only from judging, but here. I have a great deal of faith in this council. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with the people doing this, and I see nothing but good going forward. So I wish you well.
Appreciate your hand.
We're going to get 2.5 more hours of work out of you. So. At our last meeting, we had a number of motions, some of which tasked the executive director with exploring some options. So, Mary, I'll turn it to you to discuss some of the motions we addressed at our December meeting.
So this is a recurring agenda item, and we post the motions so that there is continuity between the meetings. So here is some of the motions that we had.
Move the box temporarily.
I can get rid of
Hey, good.
there. We're learning WebEx. So working with the department, and then the one around the council giving us guidance to not give guidance to the counties. I just want to thank y'all again. That was really helpful guidance, and I've been working with Smart Initiative on that as well. So everything is good there.
Put that back up.
Okay.
Yeah, if you will. There was one, don't guide counties except pointing to the list. And there was one where the department wanted, there it is. The executive director is second from the bottom. Engage with Department of Health and Mental Health Services, yeah. That's not the one. There's education. What was that?
Was that the $4?
Yeah, dollars for
Or a-
There, it's the
yeah,
second
yeah.
from the top, yeah, statewide education programs. And so we basically, Dr. Vanderpool's, motion was we would, wait until we saw more about the money. There was concern about, we have a grant process, and because, many of our OAC staff, your house from a W-2 standpoint within the department, there was a perceived conflict of interest there. So we want to make sure that we go outside our usual grant process without knowing what we're getting into. So, you were going to discuss budgets, and I suppose nothing's happened there.
Nothing's happened.
Okay, all right. Any questions about previous motions? Okay, Nathan, you have some news on community advocacy panel.
Yes.
We've got him doing 5 things.
I can make one more. If I may join. So we had our first panel meeting last month. Everybody who was chosen to be on the panel was in attendance. It was a great meeting. We worked out our vision statement and mostly focused on introductions. As I said in the last council meeting, we did have a vacancy come up, essentially right as the panel got started. One of the chosen members informed me that they would not be able to have the bandwidth to participate. So we were looking to fill that, so we did an open application for just Region 6. And the person that we have chosen is Chris Smith. I believe you all should have his bio. Chris is, works in the treatment industry, and he's self-identified as being a person in long-term recovery. He's a background in criminal justice and working with the faith community. I think it would be a great asset.
Thank you.
You have his bio in front of you.
Move to approve persons for the Region 6 vacancy of community advocacy. So,
We have a motion from Dr. Vanderpool, a second from Mr. Wyckoff to approve Chris Smith for the OAC Community Advocacy Panel. Is there any discussion? Any absence of discussion, I'll call for the question. Mary, with the roll call vote?
Brian Dodd,
Yes.
Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yes.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Ron Cowan,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Tyler Barrett,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool,
yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate your work. Where was that meeting?
It's virtual. It's all virtual.
Okay.
They're all, and we also, if I may, just real quick, I wanted to thank, they're just attendees, but we have Misty Pye and Cole Ogle attending on WebEx. So,
And they are members of the advocacy panel.
yes, sir.
Welcome. We appreciate the work that you guys do. Look forward to recommendations from you. Next, for Mary, Sean, and Melissa, we have fiscal updates.
Okay, so at each meeting, and Melissa, if you want to join us up here, and we're going to tag team on these slides. At each meeting, the OAC office will share the current monthly opioid abatement trust fund statement, and I'm going to minimize them again. So please note that the information is current to the date that the statement was created. And this statement is from January. And we have net cash on hand, 188.2 million. Any questions about the trust fund balance? All right, and this is a grid that we started showing a couple of meetings ago that Melissa updates for us. So it shows in the middle column, the total amount that we have awarded, and then the total amount that we have paid. And we are paying the community grant cycle 1, cycle 2, the contracts are getting executed presently. And then you can see the county funds, we've made 3 payments. And then within a few weeks, we will make the 4th payment. Any questions about the total awarded and paid funding? And then this also gives some insight into the deeper dive of the invoices that we're paying for the community grants. And Melissa pulls this together. This is current as of February 23rd. I know that they paid a few more since then. I think we're up to 73 million. Is that right, Melissa? Yes. We're up to 73 million. So invoices are coming in every day. And I just want to say, these are invoices that Mark and David process and make sure that they go to the Department of Mental Health, so that they are paid through Edison. So a lot of work behind the scenes on this, to get the invoices paid. Any questions on the invoices?
This may be a question for you and Sean. Of the invoices that are coming in, is there a large percentage of invoices that you guys find are unallowable expenses, or is it, I'm assuming that people are invoicing for things that are on the grants, but is it a common problem that you guys see people invoice for things that we can't pay for or should?
That's a good question. So because, unless a grant agency is under a corrective action plan, the only time we would be required, that would be the only time we're requiring that supporting documentation where we would know that information. So, but for normal processing of invoices, we don't see that information. So we wouldn't know that on the front.
So if somebody's in, the green zone, you're not particularly, there's no concerns about practices, you just pay the invoice.
That's
But it's, you ask for documentation if you're concerned about practice. Do we have any type of random or spot check process that occurs if we have something?
Not at this time.
And that during fiscal monitoring, will you speak to that, Melissa, real fast?
Yes, we have fiscal monitoring, myself and Sophia. And so we took each agency's risk assessment and based on that, as to how often we visit, how frequently, and that's when we do a random testing of their invoices.
So we do have a process.
We do.
So someone would not have to be in a corrective action plan to have their invoices looked at, based on site visits. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Every grantee should get a fiscal site review before the end of this cycle in 3 years.
So everybody gets a fiscal review. Okay.
Hi.
Any questions about that process from council members? That was a lot of information in a short amount of time.
Well, she's going to go into a little bit more detail on unallowable cost in a minute,
Thank you.
as requested. Next up, this is a recurring, for the OAC Office Discretionary Fund. Nothing has been spent to date. All right. And I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to talk about, there were some questions in the last meeting around unallowable costs, non-allowable costs. Where are we getting these terms? How do we operationalize this? So I'm going to let Melissa talk a little bit about this.
Thank you, Mary. So I want to start with what's actually in our grantees' contracts. And this is the terminology that is in their contract, non-allowable. And if the cost is deemed non-allowable, then it's subject to reduction on any invoice or payment that's determined by the state. And those are based on our auditing and monitoring that we do in accordance with the grant contract. So we use the term unallowable, the contract says non-allowable. But I do want to point out that these are not deemed as fraudulent costs. These are unallowable due to language in the contracts with the grantees sign. So on the next slide, we'll go over some common unallowable costs that we have found on our fiscal monitoring reviews that we've done so far. And we've also referenced the contract section. So a lot of grantees that are exempt from sales tax, we have found charges for sales tax. That's a pretty common thing. Again, that's not fraudulent. That's just unallowable. If you're exempt from sales tax, we shouldn't be reimbursing for sales tax. Another one is exceeding the state of Tennessee's travel per diem. The state of Tennessee has a maximum lodging rate. I'm sure y'all are aware of it when you've traveled before. But so if a grantee wasn't aware that that was in their contract and they stayed somewhere over the amount, then the amount that was over is unallowable. The last three bullets relate to indirect costs. So we've had some unallowable costs due to miscalculation of their indirect cost, where they applied indirect rate to capital purchases, which is not allowable. Some grantees charged more than their approved rate, so the amount that was over is deemed unallowable. So I just kind of wanted to go over some frequent examples that we found. Any questions about any of these?
With respect to the reviews that you conducted that are not, Sean was talking about folks that we had a corrective action plan. And we would expect there to be errors there in education to occur. When you do a site visit, and you may not have done enough of them to give us a big sample, but when you do a site visit and you're doing routine checks, there have been no prior concerns. Are you finding a high frequency of these errors? Is it a high percentage of total budget? Just a general feel for what you're seeing.
These are the most common errors we see. You know, obviously, the amount of sales tax is not going to be a large dollar amount of the budget. Those are going to be smaller, same with the project premium. But if they have miscalculations on indirect costs or something related to capital purchases, those are usually larger. Of the 51 site visits that we've done so far, only 17 had unallowable costs. That meant they had.
About a third unallowable cost. And then as a percentage of budget, would you say that maybe? Yes.
But
Oh, hey.
we did some math for you, Clay. We did some math.
Okay. Hey, did Melissa do the math? Or did you do the math?
I have zero calculators.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here as a strong man, just to set up the slides.
And so as you can see, of our 54 or 51 site visits, we've had 54 recommendations, 21 discrepancies, 11 concerns, 30 findings, and findings are our most severe that require corrective action plan if you have a finding. Of those, 290,000 is unallowable cost, which is still less than 1%, 0.46% of what we've paid. So
Is that supposed to be 131.26 or 131.20?
that's 26. That was, as of January 31st, what we can pay. But those were our site visits. That's what they
Sorry.
31st.
As of or paid invoices since? Does it
Oh,
either,
it
is
should
it
be
a 2 month or is it year to date?
Year to date.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Oh, I
Instead of the others. And then Mary had asked that I just sort of break down the strategies of where we're seeing unallowed costs under which programs. We have monitored grants in every category. So in education and training, it's been around 5% of the total budgets. Harm reduction has been 45%, prevention 4%, recovery support 30%, and treatment 15%. And we have not found any unallowed costs under research grants.
So
I think what you're seeing reflected there is probably the institutions involved in education, training, and research are more accustomed to grantees and how to do this particular thing. I think under 1% is a remarkable record. So, I mean, if I were the National Tennessean, I'd say there's nothing to see. This is great. And gives me a great deal of comfort.
point this out for everyone's, just so it's clear that the 45% on harm reduction is not 45% of the charges, but 45% of the 295.56, correct?
Correct.
So that in all things considered, it's a very low amount considering how many millions of dollars you're spending on harm reduction. I just wanted to point that out, so I think that if it was not being appropriately handled.
Yeah. This is great work. Thank you, Gail.
So on the next slide, we had some questions at the last meeting about the OAC refund process, what happens when we find unallowable costs. And there's two different ways, and we follow the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse policy. But when we find unallowed costs, we issue an exit report, a corrective action plan to the agency so they know what to expect. And depending on the amount of the unallowed cost, determines whether or not they need to write us a check back and refund it to the department, or whether or not we just reduce it on the next invoice. So there's two different ways that we process that. Either way, it gets deposited back into BCMS, which is the system we use for invoices before it gets to Edison. So it does go back into their budget. I know that was a question last time. They do get it back with a chance to spend it again unless the grant term's over. So once the unallowed costs are refunded, we do track that to make sure we have recouped what we determined to be unallowable. Then we close the corrective action plan. Move on to the next.
You guys give an example of, why would you, let them reduce a future invoice versus why they need to pay it now? Is it based on amounts, is it based on the kind of, overall risk of grantee, or is that a kind of a basic analysis where a lot goes into it? Just give us a feel for how you make those decisions.
So if a grantee has unallowed sales tax that's pretty small, and we know that they routinely send supply invoices, or if it's, state of Tennessee travel rate issues and they routinely have travel, and we know that they'll be able to adjust it the following month based on what they typically invoice, then that's an easy one. We get a copy of their journal entry or their backup where they corrected it. And then we make sure that it was reduced off of their invoice.
Okay.
If it's a large expenditure, it's gonna take several months of monitoring to make sure they keep deducting. We would prefer not to check back.
Any questions over this process?
So the next slide, I believe this goes to Dr. Jackson's question at the last time, was, in terms of our data and real-time cash on hand, we did report the January fund balance, which was, fairly recent. But in previous meetings, we reported several months, previous fund balance report. So I just wanted to give an overview of what we have access to in real time. So I can pull up in Edison the county payments that we've paid, the community debt invoices that we've paid at any given time. So that's why we present the invoices paid slide, because I have that readily available. The amount that I don't have available, which makes the cash on hand a little tricky, is I don't have what the OAC department expenses are, have been extended until the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse closes theirs and gives me that report. I also don't have the amount of interest we've earned until F&A has approved that. And then I don't have the settlements received, if we've received any settlements since that last fund balance. So that makes the actual cash on hand a little tricky and more of a projection.
Any questions about that? Does that make sense?
I appreciate your efforts to show us as best as we can. These conditions we cannot change, and we understand that. But based on these conditions, I do appreciate the fact that we're not looking back 6 weeks. You're giving us the best estimate you have as of today is where we are. And the thing that gets me to, got a lot of money in the bank, but we've also promised a lot of money out. So just keeping that, how much the percentage that we spend and everything. That's very helpful for me, just for a dashboard, and I do appreciate your efforts. And I realize we've asked for extra work for you, but it's helpful.
I can skip this slide, we went over it in January. So the next couple of slides is the same data that we're gonna see. It's just gonna be presented in a couple of different ways, for some of you who like to visualize things in different formats. But this is in response to, I believe it was Mayor Moore's questions about wanting to see our actual projections, like the future of the OAC and what's happening. So the next slide, and I do want to put a disclaimer, this does not include the Purdue settlement because we do not have those numbers yet. And these are projections. The department expenses and the interest earned are based on the previous percentages we have been using. But if you'll focus on the blue columns, those are our revenue sources. So the settlement deposits that we are scheduled to receive all the way till 2039 by year. The next column is the interest that we are scheduled to earn, hopefully, by year. So the total revenue, $895 million. That's from when we started in 2021 all the way till 2039. That's if we do not get any additional settlements, which we know we are. but that is the projection. These were based on November. Then in the red columns, those are our expenditures. So county payments are 35% of what we receive. So those would be 285 million if you go out all the way till 2039. Again, those would change if we get additional settlements. The community grant payments at 65%, what those will be all the way till 2039. And then what our department expenses are scheduled to be, if there were no changes made to our expenditures over November 30th, other than cost of living adjustments. So our total expenses are scheduled to be roughly 887 million. Any questions on this slide?
I just wanted to follow up, please. The 22 to 23 and 23 to 24 jump is because of staffing of the OAC.
Yes.
I didn't want it to be something like 300,000 or
Yeah.
1.9. That was, those were decisions that we can go back and look in minutes and see how we validated and staffed it up. Just wanted to
Yes.
bring that to the attention.
We had to build a staff to do the things that Sean, Melissa, and Mary are talking about.
Correct.
And I still think it's notable that, I mean, to me, pardon the West Tennessee simplicity, but bottom line's bottom line. And on the red side, you see 42 million in departmental expenses. To me, that's admin, and we need it. But you still got 560 million that we put out the door for community grants. That's primarily what we're responsible for. But we're still having to deal with counties. I realize there are other people who deal with counties, but we still have input into that outlay. I mean, it comes from our account. But even if you discount the county, we're still below the 10% admin of total budget that we spend. And to me, that's a good nonprofit benchmark. And I'm pleased with this. Mayor Moore, you could tell us more about civic government, and how it works, but I think this is a good admin expenditure considering the fact that there's a lot of scrutiny around these monies, how they're distributed. And I'm comforted by the fact that we've got a less than 0.5% unallowable cost audit rate. That comforts me. I don't want to be in the papers for people saying this is a boondoggle. So, I mean, that would be embarrassing, but there's a moral obligation for the money we're spending. So I'm glad there's a tension between a lot of admin costs to control, but then we also need to make sure that we're spending the money correctly.
I think less than 5% admin cost is admirable, and I applaud the staff for their hard work to squeeze every penny out of the dollar, so we can get the money out the door. That's what we're supposed to do. That's their admonition when it started, to get the money out the door. I think if you look at what Melissa's been showing, we're doing a good job getting it out the door.
Well, as far as our staff, we had a slide that we spent about 0.5 seconds on, but it was discretionary funds so far in 2 months of this year. They got a whopping $10,000 they can have a big party on. They spent 0 cents so far.
We had an ice storm in Nashville, so we kind of shut down operations for a little. Not really. We were working.
I believe it. But I mean, we gave you $10,000 to have a balloon party. You spent none. So
You're welcome.
I appreciate the fact that, you know, this is all blood money. And we've got to spend it right. So I appreciate what you guys do. These are very encouraging data.
Melissa has a couple other nice graphs.
Yeah, so this is using the exact same data that I just showed with the totals, but for those of you who like a bar chart, the blue is still the revenue, the red still the expenditures. And if you look, it's 2031 to 2032 is the first time our expenditures start exceeding the revenue. If you like to forecast out, this is another visual. The next slide is just a line graph showing the exact same thing. Obviously in 2023, 2024, the blue peak, that was when we got the largest settlement payments. So that's where we have the increase. Again, the two blue lines, the large one at the top is our settlement payments. The lower one at the bottom is the interest payments. The three red shaded lines are the second to the top is the community grants. So just where they go follows the same trend as the settlement payments, and so does the county line right below it. And then our department expenditures is the tiny red line at the very bottom where you can see there's not a lot of movement there, just steadily goes across the bottom. Hopefully this is helpful information. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to provide more. This is definitely high level overview, and I hope this lets you sleep comfortably at night knowing where we're headed. This is an opposite trend line of what you normally want. You normally want it to go up. But as Mayor Moore said, our purpose is to get this money out the door. So we are trending the right way, going down.
Dr. Moore, is that help?
Oh, yeah,
What's your question?
absolutely.
You happy?
I love the graphs that show it in words.
I just got one more question, and it may be presented here, and I may not have interpreted this accurately. So for example, when we see a dollar amount of net cash available, 200 million, so to speak, how much of that has already been promised or granted out? Those are the numbers that I'd like to see, because it's kind of like you have a checkbook and you got a whole bunch of checks outstanding, and so you've got money in the bank until the check's clear.
Yeah.
I know we have the graphs, but not for this time, but maybe for next time, if you can see of this 200 million, of the current 200 million, this is what has been promised out over the next 3 years. And it may not be presented that way, but that's just something that comes to mind.
No, I did not present that this way. This went on the fund activity report. That's only what's been paid. It's not taken into account what been promised.
Yeah, it's that next step. Thank you so much.
All right, I have one more fiscal update, and this is new settlement options. So the Tennessee Attorney General's office has settled with three new companies, and these are smaller opioid manufacturers. And the AGO has asked for our recommendation for these settlements. So similar to Teva, they are offering some product selections, and I'll go into that in just a minute. But just as a reminder, the last time we brought this to the council elected to take the cash conversion. So there's either product or there is cash in the bank account. And so the AGO has worked with these three companies and received an extension. So we have to give them a decision by tomorrow. Just a few other points around here. Unlike Teva's product selections process, the companies have not necessarily put together a pitch packet. I have a grid that's going to show that information. Also different than Teva, there's no help with disbursement. So it would be sending product to 500 Dedrick Street and then Mary figure out what to do with it. So we would be responsible for dispersing it. Okay, so here we go. The product is Narcan, Sublocade, and then some naloxone versions. And this next column, the product value and cash conversion, there's a little bit of some funny math here. They're telling us that the Narcan kits are $125 per kit, but then when I go on the internet, I'm finding the same kit for $34.99. So I'm trying to show why the product value is 4.7 million, but then we would get 1.1 million in cash. I just want you to know we're not looking at not getting a lot of money here. There seems to be, and this is just Mary looking at this on the internet, there seems to be a little bit of a markup. The bottom one. This is what I like to call Dr. Jackson Mary mad. I'm just Googling. I think it's important for y'all to know the facts.
Yeah.
But the bottom one, some other considerations here. Sublocade, y'all are familiar with that. That is for treatment and prescription only. So we would have this Sublocade that I would have to get somewhere, and then of course that requires administration within an office. And then Opti, I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. It's actually no longer being promoted by the manufacturer because of low adoption. Again, these are things that I found on the internet. So just wanting you to know the full story here. about the products and the cash conversion. Also to note, again, I said, there's no way to disperse this. We don't know how we're gonna get it out. And I say this every time, we are staffed out. So if we were to take the product, I would most likely need to ask for another FTE to try to figure out how to disperse this.
Motion to take the cash.
I second.
I need my pen.
We have a motion from Mr. Farmer. Oh,
Wayne.
Wayne. Sorry, it was a big action. Wayne has a, motion on the table to, opt for, as we call them, the straight cash only. To take the cash. And then the second was, Tom,
Got it.
any discussion? Further discussion, we'll call the question. Mary, can you call for a roll call vote, please?
Ron Beck.
Yes.
Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton.
Yes.
Mike Flynn.
Yes.
Ron Callan.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Tyler Barrett.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool.
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
Yes.
Passes.
Mayor, how about we do this? Inexplicably, we're a little ahead of schedule. Yeah, Sean, how about we, do cycle one? And let's see where everybody's biology is.
Okay.
Let's go ahead, strike while the iron's hot. Let's go ahead and do, cycle one. I ran a meeting last week and there was a gentleman in the back who raised his hand and said, I could really love a break right now. So if anybody gets in that shape, raise your hand. Sean, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So we can still continue to manage, all 113 cycle one community grants. That was for a total funding of $222.8 million over 3 years. Next slide, please. As of January 2026, we have monitored a total of 17 community cycle one grantees, and that's since July 1, 2024. And of those, we have identified 7 findings. Again, when we identify findings, they always in corrective action plan to work with the grantee to address those findings. And there was one discrepancy. Of those 7 findings, all of those but 2 have been resolved and are, and the cap that was related to that has been closed. So now we only have those 2 findings, 2 corrective action plans that are still open. Also wanted to make note that we have suspended our formal program monitoring program at this time just because we've made processing and executing the cycle 2 grant contracts priority. And so we do plan to resume those very soon. And at that time, we're going to focus on those cycle 1 grant contracts with a 2-year term because they're going to end June 30th. I think we have 9 grant agencies that we are targeting to do the program monitoring by June 30th. Next slide.
How long has the formal program monitoring been shut down? When do you plan on picking it back up? So,
Since December.
and you'll pick it back up.
Actually, we have one that's scheduled at the end of this month.
So about a 90 days.
And we also actually did one, just because it was the joint visit, we did one on March 4th.
Okay,
So.
you're up and running. Okay.
The first matter to bring to the council for decision is First Tennessee Development District. This is a 3-year grant contract for $3.1 million. Their grant project strategy is around recovery support, and their grant project is really basically a workforce development grant project. And so where they work with, not only those individuals in recovery, but also their employers, training both to kind of prepare these individuals to go and work in the workforce. This part of the grant project, the grant agency partners with several community entities such as Uplift Appalachia. for recovery transportation, recovery resources for housing, recovery housing, and then also for the Tennessee College of Applied Technology for job skills training. They are requesting to modify their grant project, which we are considering this material change. And so a material change to us is whenever a grant agency is requesting significant changes to the grant project. So part of those changes is they want to add an additional recovery housing partner, which would be Bridge to Shore. Also, as a part of this grant project modification, they would be expanding the existing services that they currently provide as a part of the grant project, which is clients receiving direct support, and also recovery from training, the wraparound services and employment, and also the training that these individuals get through the PCAT courses. I just want to point out that the grant project modification that they're proposing to make does not, it only applies to the scope of services. It would not increase the amount of their grant or their contract term. Also, we did perform a fiscal monitoring review back in February, and we did not identify any concerns at all. We also do not have any concerns with this grant agency expanding their grant project. So at this time, I'd like to ask the council to consider a motion to approve First Tennessee Development District's proposed material changes to their grant project.
Dr. Vanderpool has a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Dr. Moore. Any discussion? I'd just like to say, I like the fact that you performed a program review and fiscal review. I think that's a good practice if anybody wants to change the scope. They're not asking for more money, but I think it's good if we're going to, it reassures me if we're considering a change that you did a fiscal review. And I think that's a good standard practice that I'd recommend you guys do in the future if we have such requests. So thank you for doing that. I think that's good practice. Any other discussion? Failing further discussion, call for the question. Mary, will you proceed with roll call vote?
Ron Buck.
Yes.
Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton.
Yes.
Mike Flynn.
Yes.
Ron Cowan.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Tyler Barrett.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool.
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, our next item for discussion is Next Step Initiative. Excuse me. Next Step Initiative is, has a 3-year grant contract for $1.6 million. Their grant project strategy is harm reduction. And as of now, NSI is currently has 2 open corrective action plans. One is for fiscal monitoring and the other one is for program monitoring. And they've had 2 site visits. Well, actually, it's over 3. The first was in April, a fiscal monitoring site visit, and that followed with a program monitoring site visit in May. And so that's where the 2 corrective action plans are resulting from. We did do a follow-up joint fiscal and program monitoring site visit in February. And so based on their the issues that were outlined in the corrective action plan, they have not demonstrated sufficient progress to resolve those issues. As a result of that, we are asking the council to exercise its right to terminate NSI's community grant contract for convenience. The next slide here is actually what is in their contract. This is D.3, termination for convenience, that the state may terminate this grant contract without cause for any reason, and that we must give 30 days written notice before the effective termination date. So the next slide here. So at this time, will the council consider a motion authorizing the executive director to terminate Next Step Initiative's community grant contract effective 30 days from the date of the written termination notice?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Wykoff, seconded by Mr. Farmer. Any discussion?
Hey, can we not address that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's for public comment.
Did you get the letter we sent to the council?
I have to wait.
Yeah.
I have to wait for public comment.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll call for the question. Mary, will you proceed with the roll call vote?
Ron Buck,
Yes.
Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yes.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Ron Cowens,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer, Tyler Barrett,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
Yes. Motion carries. Charles, it's actually yours.
Yes. So, the other thing that we wanted to bring up, and there's actually going to be several other motions that kind of related to, you know, asking the council to give more authority to the office as we manage contracts. So the first one here is just asking the council to consider a motion that would give the executive director the authority to terminate community grant contracts. But that would be after consulting the legal counsel and in accordance with the corrective action and termination process that the council approved back in October.
So would this allow you to identify a problem and correct it before 3 months before we get together again?
Yeah, it would be, and the corrective action and termination process kind of outlines, you know, those issues and what steps would need to be taken. I also want to point out that if we ever had to terminate a grant contract, we would bring those back as in a summary to the council, just to make you aware of what happened.
I have some concerns. Because this is the Sunshine organization, we don't ever want to put you or Mary in a position where it seems as though there's some non-transparent management of process. I think what we did today, which is outlining the process that led up to the decision that we just took, allows us to get it on record and absolve you all, and it allows you to show the due diligence that you took in making the recommendation. And you all are also not appointed members, so you are, you know, we don't want somebody to call for a termination or something like that because they feel like they were in some way wrong. It's right. It's better to have it shouldered on the shoulders of 15 people who are appointed and can stand for a vote, and you make the recommendation. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Adding to that, Mary, would it be, it wouldn't be much more difficult just to have a emergency meeting online?
Yes, we can put together an emergency meeting. I mean, we put together one in about a week before. So 7 to 14 days, we could get an emergency meeting together.
In our first grant cycle, we had an emergency meeting every other day. It's same. It's same. And there were reasons for that, because we had timelines that we just couldn't wait 90 days on, because we were moving such long and we were building this thing. I can't remember our last emergency meeting. It's been a while. So I think that, Dr. Vanderpool, I have some of your same concerns. Based on the read of what Sean and Melissa and Mary have presented, I don't think that contract termination is going to be an every other week thing. I don't think that the burden of emergency meetings is going to be high. And I think the protection that you're alluding to, Stephanie, is going to be high. And so we were all appointed by the governor. We all signed an oath. We all agreed to do this. And I don't, unless some of the council members have great concerns about extra effort that we have to take, I think that's probably the work that we need to do.
I would agree. It's a simple comment to it. And if we don't, I like this, because if we don't, it reflects, and I would defer to the council that it puts that onus on them.
Yeah.
And potential liability for them instead of to the council. It's not going to be much.
I think also when we are considering other applications in the future, we need to have information about where our processes have not gone well, in order that we could proactively look at how we improve those processes to help people be successful and to choose candidates that we think will be successful. And so I think that's good feedback for us to be involved too, in that decision making. So,
That makes sense and is fair, and I appreciate Stephanie and Wayne and Tommy. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
okay. Well, Sean's requested that we consider this. There are a couple ways to handle this. We can, we could have a motion for the negative that we don't give authority, or we can let this die if there's no motion to prove. If anybody is in favor of putting this responsibility to the executive director, then he or she should move now, and we consider the question. If you're not in favor based on the interviews discussions, then I'll give a moment for anybody to make a motion, but otherwise we're good.
But may I ask a question?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
What is the purpose? What is the upside of doing it this way as opposed to emergency meetings? I mean, what do you gain by having the executive director?
That's a really good question, and I think it was just, one of our motives was to try to avoid any public shame that this could potentially have on the grant agency. But I definitely do agree with Dr. Vanderpool and the risks associated with that, and I do think that it's best that we would continue the process now and then just use the emergency meeting for that. And that may be something we want to consider with some of the other motions we would want to raise later about, bringing some of that, the operational part back from the office. But I do like that method. Thank you.
Well, I do think we need to be very careful about confidentiality. And there, again, this is one of those tensions between, we were talking about spending more admin money to make sure the money's spent properly versus the total spend of the money needs to be in the community. That's a tension that we have to hold, and that's going to carry on for 15 more years. This is one of those similar tensions where Tennessee's a sunshine state. We need public information, but we also be respectful to our grantees and not air anything that doesn't need to be aired. And frankly, guys, that's a tension that we cannot resolve. We can only manage. And so, in this case, I think there's a way to be respectful toward everyone, but also to make sure that we're making decisions as transparently as possible while protecting people's reputations. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. If there's no motion on the floor to approve, I'm going to move forward with the agenda. Last call. All right, Sean, next.
All right. The next item up is East Tennessee State University. They are also, and they have a 3-year contract for $4.9 million. Their grant project strategy is education and training. And so ETSU is requesting that they be allowed to carry over their estimated unspent funds for year 2 into year 3, which is $203,020. Their grant project is a behavioral health workforce related, and so they feel like that if they're able to if we can allow them to carry over their unspent funds from year 2 to year 3, that this is going to allow them to support up to 70 students as opposed to 41 students that they would support now. Also wanting to bring to the council's attention that they were allowed to roll over funds from year 1 to year 2 for $1.28 million. Also, that was something that the council had approved. I think it was back in October of 24. That was a general approval that the council had allowed for all supplemental grantees to roll over their unspent fund from year 1 to year 2.
So we said everybody could go from year 1 to year 2 because we were just getting started. They're learning what they're doing. We're learning what they're doing. So anybody can do that.
Yes.
They rolled in excess of it was 1.3 if you round $1 million if they rolled to year 2. And now they've reduced that amount of requested rollover to 200,000.
Yes.
But not everybody gets this privilege, which is why you're asking.
That's right. And the reason why we're just right now, the reason we're just bringing ETSU is because they are the only ones that was had requested this at the time.
Gotcha.
And so just also to be very transparent, I mean, because of limited resources and staff, I don't know if we're going to be able to manage, if we did this generally again for all grant agencies. And also, I don't think there's going to be that many. And because there were in year one, because there was a delay in executing the contracts, I think that is what resulted in more grant agencies needing to roll over them.
We were late with contract execution, so they were late with spending.
Yes.
But it raises the issue of setting a precedence if we continue to do it and putting that, applying it correctly on you guys. Are you prepared? We must assume that if we allow this, we move forward with this, that we set a precedence, we're gonna have others follow that.
I agree. And I think we have another motion after this to address that as well. Thank you.
Can we look at the next motion you've got? So it's before we set a precedent, we can look at what you're asking us to do.
Yes. So this next motion is that if the council will consider a motion to give the executive director the discretion to carry over FY 26 community grant funds to FY 27 for cycle one grants.
I'm gonna raise it again. I am very concerned that the more we remove from being sunshine, the more liability we potentially put on Mary and Sean's shoulders. And the more potential favoritism or unfavoritism that can be raised. I would much rather us see and say, whenever the 3 months before the end of the fiscal year, people think they can't do it, a table listing all the grants, if there are any corrective actions, if there are any fiscal monitoring concerns, anything like that, and we approve en masse or not. Rather than just having Mary do it. And this is, I hope I'm being clear in that this is not a concern about Mary or Sean's capability to do it. This is about the potential backlash if it is done without being in the public eye. So my recommendation would be to not give it in isolation, but to allow it to be prepared in a succinct fashion that can be approved by the council.
I would agree with that. And again, it goes, this is still gonna put the pressure on you or not, or you're gonna make a decision based upon the pressure on your staff. Aside from putting that pressure on this council where I think it should belong.
I'm gonna, take chair privilege, and I'm gonna actually reverse the order of these motions, Sean. And, we're consider this one first, because, if we, I think both votes, these motions impact one another in terms of setting precedent. So I think we should consider this one first. And we're kind of the same boat here, and I don't want to cut off discussion. We have all discussion, but just to summarize, we could vote in the negative and say, no, we don't want that authority, or we can just allow this to die if there's any other discussion. I'm hearing from Tommy and Stephanie that, if I'm reading tea leaves right, y'all would vote no on this because you want the burden to go on the council, which is kind of similar to what we're talking about. If anybody feels otherwise, make an argument and put a motion forward. Otherwise, we're gonna not take this one forward.
Sure. Sean, these things be an infrequent proposition, right? I mean, this doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
That's
A lot the first year.
right. And to be honest with you, we're going to get more for cycle two. We're going to get more agencies wanting to roll over their year two funds to year three. And it's going to happen. And for many different reasons that happens. The things that, concern me the most are the ones that have a very high, significant amount of money that they're wanting to roll over as an indication that for whatever reason, they're not spending.
And Sean, to that point, maybe a recommendation from staff about, what would be a acceptable percentage of rollover dollars, and then at what point does a budget revision need to be submitted in terms of, if X number percent of funds were to be rolled over, does that change the budget for the next year, which would then play into the work on staff? I do, I mean, there are unforeseen things where vacancies and staff turnover and that will just be a natural part of budget management for grantees. So as time goes on, we'll have a sense of what the standard amount of unspent dollars are from year to year if we get further into this, I think.
If they make the request, unless you just say we can't roll it over, that's it, that's all. If we're gonna change this at all, and they make the request, y'all gotta do the work. Right. All we're doing by bringing it to the council is giving you a vote for approval and our discretion, You still gotta do the work one way or the other. It's just taking a decision from Mary as one person and taking 15, and from non-sunshine to full sunshine. The only other disadvantage is that there's potential time lag of 90 days if we wait until the next scheduled meeting. But if we're willing to have emergency meetings, that obviates the time advantage. And so I think that, Stephanie, your comments weigh heavily with me that this is a sunshine state, and then Tommy, your comments weigh heavily that we should bear the responsibility of decision power. These guys are bearing a lot of administrative logistic power that they have to do. The decisional weight and responsibility is ours as a council, as I see it. Any other discussion? I'll handle this the same way. If anybody's in favor of this, then move and see if you can get a second and vote. If nobody's gonna move, then we're gonna go back to the previous question. Everybody all right? No one? Everybody's had an opportunity to speak? Okay. So we're not gonna carry this one forward. Let's go back to ETSU. Do we need any further discussion with this one, or is there anybody who wants to move here?
I just wanted to make it, stated for the record that there are no concerns with fiscal monitoring or program monitoring with CSU's particular grant.
And we have not conducted, and actually we're going out in April, but we have not conducted the fiscal or program monitoring status with this particular institution.
So it brings me back to the first, again, it's taking on additional work, setting a precedence. And we haven't fiscally looked at them yet. We haven't looked at them operationally. We haven't looked at them fiscally yet to see. We've seen 2 requests for carryovers already. I know the first one was a blanket for everyone, but this is the second one. And we are getting into a point where we could not only extend the scope of it, but we're going to expand the scope of grant. We could be pushing into next year's funding beyond the term of the grant, original grant.
So, and just to clarify, I mean, nothing will happen with their grant project. So, I mean, it's just rolling over the funds, but would it also be, would it be better just to bring this back after we have our site visit in April?
Yes.
I think so.
Is there any reason that we, as far as this one's concerned, that it couldn't be considered at our regularly scheduled June 2nd meeting? Is that too close to the end of the fiscal year for you, or could we do it
I
then?
think that's fine. Yeah.
I would suggest we defer it until they have the opportunity to do the site visit.
One other comment I would make is, the bottom line here is, if they roll over those grant monies from 2 to 3, they're adding 29 more students, in the behavioral health pipeline, which, we all know that's a big deficit. So I think that's something, but I'm not against, doing the audit and then reconsidering it.
I think that's a better precedent. Yeah.
I love the merits, but I like what you're saying. Let's do the audit first, and then let's go. If you guys huddle and you feel like that we need an emergency meeting because we don't want to dump this on June 2nd, I think the will of council be, we're fine to have an emergency meeting as long as we can get away from a precedent of extending somebody twice without a fiscal review. I think we set a better precedent if we look before we say it. Yeah.
And we also, whenever our agency is asking to carry over their funds, there's about 5 questions that we ask them. And one of those is, how is this going to impact the next budget year? Are you going to be able to spend that money? And that's in addition to them giving us a justification for the carryover. And we'll be happy to bring that back to them, so your decision is informed.
Okay, so we can keep up with this from meeting to meeting, I'm actually, we probably could use a motion here, to do, to direct the staff to do a, fiscal review. Is it
It's going to be a program.
program monitoring review before we, extend?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we defer or delay any action on this motion until they conduct that review. So they bring it back to us either in our regular scheduled meeting or in an emergency meeting.
We have a motion on the floor to delay this extension until such time as OAC staff has conducted a program review. At which time, this request will be reconsidered at our regularly scheduled June meeting or an emergency meeting at the, staff's discretion.
Second.
Second by Dr. Moore. So we have, given motion by General Flynn, second by Dr. Moore. Any question? Any discussion?
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
this is applying specifically to ETSU, or are we setting a precedent for?
This motion is for ETSU.
Okay, I will, after this one, I want us to discuss future, so we don't have to have this conversation again, because we're gonna have other people requesting a rollover, and we need to either define or decide or set a policy for that, but we can vote on this motion right now.
Okay. Any other discussion about this particular one? No further discussion. We'll call the question. Mary, to proceed with a roll call vote.
Ron Buck,
Yes.
Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Ben Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yes.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Ron Cowan,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Tyler Barrett,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool,
Yeah,
Wayne Wykoff.
Motion carries. Dr. Vanderpool, you have the floor with respect to, process.
thank you. So my thought in this is because this is likely going to come up again. I would like for us to, possibly not today, but have Mary and Sean come up with a recommendation for what they will present to the council in the event another grantee requests a rollover or another group of grantees request a rollover. Things like the percentage of grant fund that is about to be rolled over. I believe anyone that's requesting a rollover of funds should have some form of program monitoring done before we decide on the vote. If there are any fiscal actions, yes or no, they don't have to go into a fiscal monitoring visit if the program monitoring is appropriate, whatever the policy is. But I believe that all of those things should be conducted and presented to the council before we as a council vote on whether or not to roll over the funds. It may be that it may be that if there's a whole bunch, we do it in like a red, yellow, green situation where these are all green, no issues. These have some concerns, these we're very concerned about, and then we can take each block in mass and discuss. But I believe that's going to be both more transparent, more effective, and again, protect the decision making, taking it from 2 shoulders to 15 shoulders is going to make a big difference. So my motion is that Sean, sorry, and Mary present to the council at a future date, whether it's an individual session or otherwise, well, at a future date in public session, the process that we will follow to consider future rollover requests.
Second that.
Okay, so there's a motion for Dr. Vanderpool, and we have from Judge Section as a second, to direct the OAC staff to propose a policy
A process.
process for,
Summarizing.
presenting to the council
Yeah.
the summary of, the information we need to make a decision regarding, rollover of granted funds to a further fiscal year. So that's the motion. And we have a second. Any discussion?
I have a friendly addition.
Okay, Fred?
And also, part of that motion, tell us why you think we should do it.
Right. So, Okay,
So why the staff thinks we should do it, or why the grantees agree? I think if they say why they think we should or shouldn't do it, then we're putting it on them. We could put a recommendation, approve or don't approve, but.
Some of the discussion, we're remixing this whole cake if we start doing this ourselves. I mean, they made the proposal, they asked for the money, they said ABC will accomplish X, Y, Z. And now we're letting, and I'm not trying to be mean to grantees, but at the same time, it requires some precise movement at the initial time of the proposal. If we allow a whole lot of this changing up, we are complicating lives for us and for the entire process. Everyone, I mean, this could bleed over onto many grants if we don't ask for some precision when they start this. So, we don't want to make this an easy process in my mind.
I agree with Judge. I do. Again, it goes back to, it burn the word up precedence. I think that precedence, we're trying to make this decision, put the decision on this council, and not necessarily additional work on you guys. And in the process, we may be putting additional work on you guys. I think our precedent should be, you submitted an application, you submitted your request, you projected out your operation, what you're gonna do, your fiscal, everything's there. Now we understand things happen, but let's look it on.
Well, and are we going to bear the brunt of that happening?
That's right.
Because that's what will happen.
I hear that. Also, from the standpoint of a grantee, if they've accomplished, some of these folks have accomplished what we've asked them to do, they're not asking for additional money. In this particular case, it's 29 more students that they say that they could serve. So, we take a risk on everybody we grant. If these guys have corn in the crib and they've accomplished something, and they're not asking for you money, they're asking to spend more money next year for the same thing and expand the program at no additional cost to us. The return on that investment for our Tennesseans ought to be pretty high. So I appreciate your comment, Judge, and I think we're just it's kind of like cycle one, we built it. I think this is something that if we're tick-tacking and we're trying to add another FTA to consider all these expansions and rollovers and everything, that's one thing. The way Stephanie said, I mean, next time we grant, we're gonna have to have more than a 3-hour meeting, but guys, we get portioned out, scores of millions of dollars looking at spreadsheets. We're talking about a few $100,000 here, and we can make a spreadsheet and look at it, and these are people we've already vetted. We're talking about rolling up money, so precedent's precedent. We've done this one. We just moved to have a process, and let's see how it goes. But I think, the risk of finding a new somebody that you don't have any known relationship with, giving them a bunch of money and seeing how it does, versus somebody that's already been doing what we've asked them to do, sending the monthly invoices and rolled all the money. It's work either way. We're gonna get the money out the door for a monitor it. This seems to me to be less risky work.
And it seems to me that if they're pushing the money into the future as opposed to trying to give it now, that gives us a better opportunity to look at what they're doing.
That's true. Okay, we have a motion that's still on the floor, that's been duly seconded. There was a proposal for friendly amendment about, why we should do this. I heard in some discussion that the staff shouldn't be involved for why. That onus was on the grantee to present the why.
I'd like the grantees to present the why.
Yeah.
And I don't want I think the staff can just present the date.
Yeah. So, the original mover has said, that they would accept the grantee explaining, why this is needed, which I think is part of the 5 questions you asked me. All right. Any further discussion about Dr. Vanderbilt's motion? So to be clear, we
That's
need to
not the
get the
motion.
slide away. This is not the motion we're voting on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to make sure Ron was still on.
Sorry, Mary.
Yeah, do you want me to just do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So the motion that's on the floor is to direct OAC staff to recommend a process before our next meeting or at our next meeting, that would, the way we would handle roll. That's what we're voting on right now. Okay. No further discussion. I'll call the question. Mary, see, roll call vote.
Brian Buck,
Yes.
Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yes.
Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Ron Cowan. I think he is on mute. I'm trying to get in touch with him. Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Tyler Barrett,
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
Yes.
Motion carries. Sean, have we finished, community grant cycle 1?
Yes. we have.
Bio break. If all minds are clear, we'll see you back at 10:45.
So.
Yeah.
So,
Those are the people I know.
You said we're inexplicably ahead of schedule. We are inexplicably behind schedule now, because, we kept Sean on the hook for a while. But, that was important discussion. Called for a couple of other ones that could get in front of us. So I think we'll be able to redeem that time. However, with, do need to reserve time for community, comments. So we have about 55 minutes left. I'm going ahead and call the meeting back to order. Calling the meeting back to order. I know there's some other members that'll be coming back from the vial breaks. But Sean, you have some other items about grant cycle 2 that you want to tell us about. There you go.
Okay, thank you. So this is just a summary of the cycle 2 community grant process, and you just skip to the next slide. Which right now we are, in the process, well, we are, 42 community grants were awarded for cycle 2 for $24 million for the first year funding and $63.7 million over the course of 3 years. This slide here provides a summary of where we're at right now with processing all cycle 2 community grants. This was current as of 3/1, and so good news is that some of this information has changed, specifically with the number of fully executed contracts that we have now. So now we have a total of 13 fully executed contracts. The next line represents those package contracts that are pending the contract request form. And so when we say package, what we mean by that is that the contract has already been, the base raw contract has already been sent out to the grant agency for a preliminary review. And then once we get that back, pending any changes that they made, we package the contract with the budget, also with the remedial list, and the announcement of funding. So that gets packaged. And so those contracts right now are pending. It's an internal process where they get a contract request form and the budget gets for their program code gets approved. That 18 has also been changed. So we did get 6 of those completed. So now there's a total of 12 package contracts that are pending the contract request form. 7 contracts are pending the grantee signature. And also want to focus on just the outliers. As of now, we've had a total of 2 cycle 2 awardees who have declined their grant project or grant award, and that's Inland County and Restoration House. And then University of Memphis Research Foundation is pending the OAC review, which we'll discuss a little later. Hamlin County withdrew because of some funding with the building that was going to actually house their reentry program for men. And so they decided to withdraw and do plan to submit a proposal for later cycles. Restoration House also made a business decision to withdraw, and they also may apply again for a future cycle. Any questions?
What were the dollar amounts for those?
I don't have that, but I can certainly get it to you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Moore, were you thinking about whether we should just put this back in fund or whether we should pull those funds out and look at other grantees that we weren't able to fund?
I had assumed it would go back in overall.
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes, yes.
Foundation for other funds.
Yeah, it's never been taken out, so it's still there.
Okay. Next slide. So this next slide is for University of Memphis Research Foundation. Again, they are cycle 2 awardees. They were awarded a 3-year grant contract for $1.8 million for education and training. This grant, project that they have is aims to train, PhD students, 6 per year, over the course of 3 years. And so they are requesting to modify their existing grant project because they have since, been awarded a HRSA grant for the same training program. And so they would like to modify their OAC grant project by reducing the number of PhD students that would be trained from 6 per year to 2 students per year. And then additionally, they would like to expand their grant project to train undergraduate students and also advanced master's level students or pre-master's level students as well. So that's, that's kind of the key changes we're proposing. At this time, I'd like to present to the council a motion or to consider a motion to approve the University of Memphis Research Foundation's proposed grant project. Very happy to answer any questions you have.
They want to keep all the money and just start training different people. They reduce it to 2 students. And then they're gonna, these are PhD levels, so they're close to the end of the pipeline. They want to do 2. So I'm assuming that, rather than 1.8 million, they're asking for 600,000 for that. They're gonna want to take 1.2 million and put it at undergrads at pre-masters.
And also, and thank you for reminding me of that, because one of the things I wanted to point out too is based on their modified grant project, they say that this is going to be approximately $300,000 less than what they were originally budgeted.
Okay.
I hate a moving target. And, I like what they're doing, but this creates a problem for us, in my opinion, that all of a sudden everybody's wanting to change their grant. They're gonna justify it because they're gonna put 3 more students in the mix. And maybe there was a project that was better than this project. Now that they're modifying theirs, I don't know, so.
I'm gonna use the term one more time. Thank you.
Tommy President Farmer, you have the floor.
Well, again, what prevents everyone else in the midstream of this to say, let's change? Oh, I don't want to do it. Well, we got additional funding here to do this. Let's change gears and do all of this. I think we've been talking about this type of move the whole time.
Yes. I remember last meeting, Stephanie, when you took a broad motion and kind of split it into 2 parts. And I'll be honest with you, the first part of it, I'm fine with. The second part, I'm not. If they just said, we want to reduce our budget by 2/3 because we got 6 places funded, we want you to fund 2, and it's the same project and they're close to the end of the pipeline. I mean, when you start talking about advanced undergraduates, that sounds like confidence raising to me. And I find that confidence raising has a low ROI. But if you're talking about coaching up a PhD program, they're going to hit the streets pretty soon. So I almost wish we could just say, we'll fund 2 on your initial proposal, but we're not considering this a new revision. So I don't know if you've got negotiations with them, Sean, about that. I mean, probably need more discussion, but Tommy, you're the most conservative on setting precedent. How would you feel if we said, how would you feel if we went back to them and said, we'll fund your 2 that we'll fund 2 because that's the project that's in.
That's what
You feel better with that?
I would.
Because, and that answers, Ken, you talk about a moving target. That's not a moving target, that's a reduced target. We were willing to fund 6 and now we're funding 2.
I'm not familiar with the HRSA grant.
It's health and research. It's for underserved areas and it goes by zip code. So HRSA grants are very common in graduate medical education. Stephanie can tell you, it's federal funding that comes for HRSA under-resourced areas. So they got federal funding instead of state. So now they want us to keep our money, but target to different things. And I feel more comfortable with them keeping part of our money that they said that we approved for, rather than a whole new
Well, Mr. Chairman, how does this tie into the next item on the agenda where staff is requesting us to allow them to develop guidelines and bring that back to us? Is that basically what they're asking for? And would we not be better to develop that policy and then apply it to University of Memphis and everybody else after we have a set policy?
I take your point, and I think this is very analogous to the previous request that we had in terms of rollover. I think that we do need to, before we set precedent, we need to, thank you, we need to, create some guidelines. And I think I'm hearing from multiple council members that substantially changing the scope of a project for the people that it serves is not something that sits well with this council. But a reduction or addition or rollover in budget for the same service population, the same general conception of the grant seems more palatable to us. Is that?
Well, I think just to
Now, we
go,
got to put that in process language, but that, I think I'm reading the room on that.
I think that needs to go on the process language.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to University of Memphis. Right here, you're good. This modification, this is a cycle 2.
Yes,
So we voted, then granted, when does the contract start?
but it's effective January 1, even though it hasn't been executed yet, but it will be effective January
2026. So
Once it's executed.
once it's executed, so it's on the books, but it hasn't been executed yet. So there is a time pressure here, right?
Yes.
So if we said to them, we want to do a process instead of one-off in this. If you guys get something back to us in 30 days, we'll have an emergency meeting to do the process and then we'll get back to it. I don't want to delay them to June 3rd, is what I'm saying. Because that's half the year gone. Is that practical? Can we do that?
I can do that.
Would the council be willing to have an emergency meeting to approve this process? And that way we can get these guys an answer by the end of the month or middle of February, middle of April. Excuse me.
So you're kind of working on this mission.
We're working on this motion, but I wanted to ask him how practical it was to delay them.
If we're putting this process, if we're delaying the process for this until then, I would like us, and I agree with that. I would like us, if possible, to also have the process for the rollover at that same emergency meeting.
Do the same
If
emergency
they
meeting.
don't think that's possible, Mary made a face, if they don't think that's possible, that is fine. But if it is possible to do it, if it's
I
possible,
defer to Sean.
I'm not saying to make a vote on who's rolling over. I'm just saying,
Right.
what is the process
Got it.
that we're recommending for the
Okay.
rollover considerations at the next emergency meeting?
I feel confident that we can turn it down just because we've already done most of the work already.
They're going to be there's going to be a lot of same language, honestly.
That's what I feel.
Because we have a lot of same concerns for the same thing. We don't want to open it wide for a moving target. We don't want to set a bad precedent. And we want to make sure that we're dealing, for rollover, we want to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That won't be in this particular language, but it's the same thing.
Well, we want to treat everybody equally and fairly
Right.
and not, yeah, this sounds good today. Well, tomorrow this sounds good or this doesn't sound good, and have a set procedure to look at that.
And the bias of the committee is in dealing with an individual question. We have a favorability bias, and we just have to consider everything in total. Again, I'm going to exercise chair privilege and take this motion first, or consider this first, because this impacts the previous one that Sean had requested. So here we have a proposed motion, create guidelines for modifying the grant projects. And we're actually considering this within 30 days of the emergency meeting, just to get out the timeline. Do we have anyone that would support this motion? Or bring it?
Is it guidelines or is it a policy?
Oh, we're done.
Somewhere.
Sam?
So you have a policy for the community grant. So you have a policy draft, right? I would consider this probably more of like a standard operating procedure or guidelines.
Let's call it guidelines. Is that okay?
Hey,
Sam says we're all right.
you're the chair.
Chair, I'll make the motion.
That is
Tyler.
Tyler. Dr. Barrett moves. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Buck. Any further discussion? We'll call the question. Mary, please proceed with roll call vote.
Ron Buck.
Yes.
Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton. Lisa, are you still on? She may have. She has left. Mike Flynn.
Yes.
And Ron has left. Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Tyler Barrett.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool.
Yeah.
Wayne Wyckoff.
Yes.
Now, let's put the other one up. Sean had requested that we consider, University of Memphis Research Fund, to approve their project revisions. Several council members have expressed the view that we should establish guidelines first. But I just want to make sure that if anyone wanted to propose this, remove this, that you do have an opportunity from a parliamentary standpoint. So if anyone wants to propose that we go ahead and deal with the University of Memphis today and speak forth at this time. Not hearing a motion, we'll proceed with the agenda. So this motion is not presented.
Oh,
Any other cycle two? So the upshot of that is we're looking for within 30 days from staff, some guidelines around rollover and some guidelines around project revision. And we would welcome an emergency meeting to vote on those guidelines. We would also welcome at that time a vote on the one that requested rollover, the one that requested. So we would potentially do 4 votes that emergency. And that's cycle 1 and cycle 2. All right, cycle 3. Mary?
yeah, it's me.
It is. Well done.
All right.
Play.
Where did I put this on? Okay, great news. Community Grant Cycle 3 is currently in the application phase, and the application portal opened on Monday, March 2nd, 2026. The approved budget was $28 million for the first year, $84 million over 3 years. Just a review of the schedule of events. So we're in the portal opening, and I can't seem to update my slides. So it closes on April 6th. I apologize about that. It closes on April 6th, which y'all had changed. We will meet in December, and it is a 6-hour meeting per motion by Dr. Clay Jackson, when we will.
You're welcome.
We will be back in the Knoxville area for that, and then hopefully, I mean, at that time, folks will know. But the anticipated date for the contracts to be effective is July 1. I'm just pointing out that there are technical assistance materials on the website. We have a frequently asked questions document, which has just been revised, a helpful hints document, proposer instructions, and technical assistance videos that yours truly recorded. It takes you step by step through the portal. So I encourage anyone who is planning to submit an application to read through all of these documents and watch the videos. You can watch it on 1.25 or 1.5, but it definitely, hopefully will answer a lot of questions that you have. And this is what our website looks like. We are going through a little bit of a website revision. We have to be in compliance with the ADA standards and law 4848 for how the website is supposed to appear by April 24th. So Matthew Perriott and Debbie Brzee are working on our website, making sure that it is in ADA compliant. So if you go there, things are going to look a little different. But this is the new current community grant cycle page, and that is where you will find all the updates. Just another reminder that all proposers may not reach out to council members, OAC staff, or the department staff about the announcement of funding. Unauthorized contact regarding the announcement of funding with anybody other than the oac.leadership@tn.gov may result in disqualification. We are monitoring the oac.leadership at tn.gov email box pretty frequently. I just checked it. And we're getting back to folks with any questions that they have about the portal. So far, we've just had one little issue with the portal, and Smart Simple was able to fix that within like 2 hours. And there were no other issues. Okay, any questions about cycle 3? Okay, that's all I have on cycle 3. I have a few other items.
So you want to talk about generator?
Generator and intra-rater reliability. Do I? Yeah, I do. Actually, I am bringing back some information on questions and discussions that we've had in the past. And this has to do with scoring the applications and ensuring that there is inter-rater reliability. So there is an office called Office of Evidence and Impact. They live within Finance and Administration. And David Lewis, our quality director, and we've had a couple of conversations with the staff there. They're under Commissioner Bryson, and he actually suggested that I reach out to OEI, see what they have to offer. So they were very helpful. They shared considerations on improving inter-rater and intra-rater reliability. So made a grid here. On the left hand, guidance from the Office of Evidence and Impact, and on the right hand side, actions that we have taken. And I'll say the main increase, or how we feel like that, according to the guidance from OEI, we have increased our inter-rater and intra-rater reliability, is publishing the OAC scoring rubric in the announcement of funding. So that rubric that the scorers use, the council members, Sean, Mark, David, when they are scoring the grants, having that in the announcement of funding helps bridge that inter-rater and intra-rater reliability. There are other things that were already in the announcement of funding or in the OAC scoring rubric that matches up with the guidance from the Office of Evidence and Impact. So this is just kind of closing the loop. We know there have been some questions. I talk about it when I do y'all's training, just to make sure that you're using the scoring rubric so that all the scoring has that reliability.
So to be clear, inter-rater is so that I don't score everything at 90 and Stephanie scores everything at 30.
That's right.
And intra-rater is I don't score them at 80 when I've had coffee, but if I'm mad at my wife, I score them at a 50.
That's right. And oftentimes when I'm doing the training, what I ask y'all to do is read 3 or 4 applications before you assign a final score so that you can find your rhythm, you can get your feel for what the applications look like and how you're making that match with the scoring rubric.
What are you guys seeing? I mean, are we all across the board, or we typically the scores fit along the council?
They kind of fit along the council. There have been 1 or 2 outliers looking at the how they compute, like Smart Simple actually computes this. But it has been, I mean, obviously I'm not a statistician, but when I look at it, I'm not like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? It's not a scatter drill. There is a pretty good grouping. Yes, that's the word. There is a decent grouping.
I would just say if we get, we get into cycle free and you guys are still seeing outliers, maybe give us some feedback and say, you know, you consistently score lower than your colleagues, or you consistently score grants higher than your colleagues.
Okay,
Uh,
sure. I think
so
I'm gonna do.
that, so that we could know that.
Okay,
Be helpful.
great.
Thank you for this, Mary. This is in response to questions that we had, and we appreciate you making this up.
But now, Mary, on all of these, are they only being scored by one member of the council?
Every application that meets eligibility and moves to scoring receives 3 scores. They receive a score from the deputy director, they receive a score from a grants analyst, and they receive a score from an OAC council member.
So, and you're measuring
All of it.
all 3 of those together,
Yes.
so it's not just a question of this council member got one that was really bad and scored it low. They got 2 or 3 that were bad and gave low scores, but you're comparing it to what the other 2.
Right, yeah, Mark and David and Sean's and Sage's scores are in the mix as well.
And just for reiteration, we are randomizing how the council members are receiving the grants. So it's a randomized process as to which grant goes to which council member.
It's randomized after the conflicts of interest are entered. So once we have, I mean, I know y'all have filled out a conflict of interest statement, but what we do is those organizations that move to scoring, and we've done this for the past 2 years, you receive that list and then you mark which ones you have a perceived conflict of interest. Then when David does the randomizer, he pulls those out so that you're not assigned that. And then there's also the option, sometimes you don't recognize the name necessarily, but when you get in and start reading it, you're like, oh, I feel like I have a conflict of interest. That gets sent back to me. We reassign it, and then that conflict of interest is absolved.
Good.
All right. Next up, this is for a discussion around data presentations and decision-making. So annually, we hear from the Department of Mental Health Planning and Policy Council that is in statute, and the OAC voted to approve this cadence. And then at the past meeting, the December 2025 meeting, the Department of Health presented some overdose data. So, and we've had data that I presented in a couple of different meetings, looking at maps, definitely from the Department of Health, and then some from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. So I'm curious, does the OAC wish to hear data presentations in the future outside of the Policy and Planning Council? If so, at what frequency? And then if there is something that we could do, the office could do to assist, does the OAC wish to use this data with making funding decisions? And that is something the office can assist with if you so choose. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't know how helpful the health presentation was, and if that's something you would like to see in the future. They definitely offered to come back.
Data is important.
Absolutely.
Helps us make decisions, gives us the basis of making decisions. So I thought those were helpful personally.
Correct.
I'd like to have annual overdose data. I think it's very helpful to see. I mean, I'd love to take credit for the double-digit drops that we've had over the last 2 years. I wish that were all due to us. I don't think it is. We're just seeing some good things happen across the board. Crime is down double digits. So are overdose deaths. But I think tracking it year on year is extremely helpful. One thing I like to see is that dollars that we have granted per deaths per capita. You know, that's the one the map that I asked you to present to us.
Oh, right. You asked for that right after David Lewis started, and he pulled that together like in
Yeah.
a few weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
And I would like to see that again
Okay.
before we award cycle 3.
Okay.
Because if Hamilton County has not gotten a lot of money and they have a lot of deaths per capita, if we have anything that's good from Hamilton County, that ought to inform our decision making as far as I'm concerned. So where we have had hot spots that we haven't funded, that to me should rank highly in our decision making. It's got to be a good program. We don't want to throw money at it, if there are good programs that we want to consider those.
So as far as frequency, I'm hearing bring back Department of Health perhaps annually. They were very kind to present to us some preliminary data. And then perhaps also in the decision meetings when we are going to be voting on the applications, look at some data. Okay.
That's what I'd like to see, yeah.
Okay.
But let's, if we could, I know you do your one-on-ones and I know we can't deliberate, but if we could have a couple of council members take a look at what you're going to present before the decision meetings.
Okay.
Sometimes I know how it is. We present it to us, we say, no, we want this, and he needs to do that. And we know we wanted this. And so let's have a couple of cuts through it.
Sure.
So that when we get a decision that everybody's happy with the data.
We can definitely do that. All right, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. All right, next up, a request to post community grant project summaries. So the OAC office has received several inquiries over the last couple of years to share the descriptions of the contracted community grants. Sharing the descriptions of the contracted community grants would definitely allow for further transparency of our work. And then before posting those, the OAC office will work with each contracted community grantee to ensure their project narrative is current and doesn't contain any proprietary information. And this is an example. I would work with Maggie Period to make sure that it was ADA compliant, but some type of searchable grid by cycle, out by the term, the agency, the strategy, and then have the brief description. And then that would be posted on the website. And then I have a motion on this. It's
So Dr. Vanderpool has moved, we accept this recommendation. Who was the second?
Second, Dr. Barrett.
Oh, second. Tommy beat you to it.
He's always quicker.
I have a question here. Is this in the contract that we could do this, or we're going to individually ask each grantee to allow us permission to post their stuff?
It is presently not in the contract, but going forward, starting with cycle 3, we can put it in the contracts.
Do it.
Okay.
Are you going to post cycle 1 and cycle 2?
Yes, I mean, yes, I want to get, yes, that is the intent.
Are you going to go back to them, just send them a letter and say, we're going to post this, is this okay? Is that how you're going to handle the confidentiality of?
I'm gonna do it.
All right. You're just going to mail them a letter and say, we've had a request to post, is it okay to post it?
Yes.
I think most people would like it because it gets their brand out there.
Yes. Yes.
But we got to ask if we didn't tell them the brand.
Right.
Any further discussion?
Well, one of the things on the grant application, are you going to share the information?
Yes. Share your findings. Yeah.
Yeah, the outcomes. Because that, in a lot of the, especially the state and federal grant applications or private, that's required, is the outcomes.
Did, Tyler, did you have a question?
No, I just was seconding it, but there is a comment from Joanne in the chat. You may want to take a look at.
We'll wait till public comment.
Any further discussion of this motion that's been due with section? No further discussion. I will call the question. Mary, please proceed with roll call vote.
Ron Buck,
Yes.
Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Okay, Lisa's left. Mike Flynn.
Yes.
Ron's left. Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Tyler Barrett.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool.
Yes.
Wayne White.
Yes.
Motion carries. Now we have a review of new and existing policies.
And we are with just existing policies today, moving the new policy to when Steve is back. So these are 4 policies that the council has approved in the past, and have all gone under an annual review. And Sean and I have reviewed these. Sam has reviewed, JP has reviewed. The red line version was emailed out to the council members, and they had in their packet the clean version. A lot of it was cleanup due to some changes with the Open Meetings Act and making sure that the policies are still aligned with statute. There were some grammatical changes and updates. I will say there was a good bit of change with the community advocacy panel, again, just to make sure that we were complying with the Open Meetings Act. Some of that we had to put into process through the first meeting to make sure that it was working the way that it needed to work. So any questions on those policies? Anything you want to be saying? Okay.
Sam, did the quorum issue, change in law, was that reflected in this policy? You told me there was a change in law regarding our physical quorum and online quorum.
Yeah, the way the policy reads is, so it's broad to account for changes in the law. It just says you need to comply with them.
Okay,
So the quorum provision is covered under any changes made forward.
but Sam did tell me that for a hybrid meeting where we're meeting in person and have online folks, let's say only 5 of us that come today, if we have 3 online, that does constitute a quorum. This have to be warm bodies in a room. We can have a hybrid meeting. I think this reflects change in law that reflects changing societal practices regarding group meetings. But we still have to, regardless of how many are here, the way the council is constituted, even if we have 8 people, you still got to get 8 votes to pass the motion. So it's not a majority of quorum, it is majority of all members. So we can conduct business with 8, whether they're in the room or online, but we still got to have 8 votes to pass the motion. That's my understanding.
Same, isn't there a requirement that at least once a year you have physically present?
For the OAC meetings, there has to be at least, I think, 4 physically present occasions, but that doesn't affect the quorum. It's just having the.
That you have to have at least.
We have to have 4 face-to-face.
Physically in the room.
And then I just wanted to point out 4.92 addresses by electronics means constituting physical form. So.
And I was also going to take a moment to say, we're still at 14 members. We're waiting an appointment from Speaker Sexton's office to fill Casey Cox's seat that was vacated on June 30th. So even though we're at 14, I've still been advised we have to meet a quorum for what we're set to have, which is 15.
And we've got our chair on a medical sabbatical too.
So thank you.
It's good that we have a lot of consensus today.
Yes.
It disadvantages people who have business before the council on. So it'll be good when we have these 2 seats filled again. Okay, we got a motion. Is that right? Did we already get the motion? We didn't get a motion yet. Thank you, appreciate it. Would anybody put forward a motion to approve the revised policies?
So moved.
Dr. Moore moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Judge. Any further discussion? Finally, further discussion, I'll call the question. Maybe speak roll call vote.
Brian Buck.
Yes.
Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Mike Flynn.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Tyler Barrett.
Yes.
Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool.
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
Yes. Motion carries.
All right, and I have not heard any issues with WebEx yet. So this is our first meeting using WebEx, and I can just take a moment to thank Nathan Payne for getting us to this point where we're able to use WebEx, and Debbie Brzee for creating like 3 different appointments to get us to this point. I very much appreciate it. So everybody that is virtual is an attendee, and Nathan will let us know and we'll unmute, or I'll unmute people that want to speak. So I just want to say that, but I guess we'll go to one person first.
Open Abatement Council is directed by the state legislature to reserve a period for public comment, to provide the public with the opportunity to comment on matters that are relevant to the items on the agenda for the meeting. At the appropriate time, which is now, the chair will open the meeting for public comment, Guests attending in person shall make their intent to speak known, and the chair will recognize the individual. Those who are electronically attending will signify by electronically raising their hand, and the executive director will let me know as chair, and those will be recognized. I do need to instruct you that during our public comment time, we'll make sure that we have time for everyone. And so we would ask you to limit your comments to 2 or 3 minutes each. The committee or the council is not permitted to respond to these in terms of a discussion or answer questions this time. This is public comment.
I'm gonna go to. Yeah, we're gonna stand up here. Yes. Okay. We're connected, I'm connected, I can say goodbye. I'm the one that was told that we're not taking the business grant. However, one, you don't have to answer it, but as a stakeholder, we're grantees. As a stakeholder, we're technically kind of supposed to be able to talk to you guys if we make a decision about it, but I did submit a formal letter to, Mary and Sean. I have a copy of that as well, if you all will even look at that. However, with next step, we are a grassroots organization. We're losing our grant over sales tax for things that we, out of regard for the council and for the auditors and respect. There were things that we rebutted, but didn't want to rebuttal out of respect, but we just let it be allowed, out of fear of losing the grant and things like that. The work we do, we've got over 15,000 needles off the streets, out of parks. We drove pregnant women we get out of our bed and we kid people and we do the work. Once this funding is taken, people will die. This right here, we have all around our neck. This is people who's already overdosed. This is blood money. I want y'all to remember that you will see me again, that this is not, I will do what it takes to keep changing lives. I am an addict. I am in recovery. We are worthy. I've been telling my whole life that I'm nothing and I'm not worthy, but no, I am. Through this process, I've learned so much. But maybe the council can consider when the money is for people doing the work. Get somebody to teach us instead of punishing us for the lack of knowledge. We deserve to do the work, and then we need the money to do that. We need to help. We have people every day. We are SSP, we've done everything in our power. And maybe it's the fact that a couple of council members don't agree with the work we do, and that's okay. But I know there's a few on there that have the heart for that. I listen. But I'm not gonna keep laughing on because they want to say something and their voice is too powerful of mine. But remember me, my name is Christina Black. It will not be the last time you hear me. Thank you.
Made a lot of mistakes in my life, man, but I feel like that one of the most powerful themes in my entire life has been the theme of redemption. Is when I redeemed myself day in day out. And I know that Next Step Initiative, this lady, from the time I met her, giving out Pop-Tarts and hugs 10 years ago, just doing it out of love and direction of her heart. I mean, it made, let me show you this. I'm gonna show you a picture of my mother, man. This is my screensaver. I want it from being a burden to everyone around me. Where I bought my mom a Christmas present this year, man. I got her a genuine smile on her when it's not me making mistakes. I'm going back and giving back to my community, and I'm making a difference in my community. I got 6 months clean. And at one point, when I didn't know what I was gonna do, how I was gonna get off the streets, and I didn't even have the money to buy a cell phone to call this person or figure out what I was gonna do. I knew I could come to Next Step Initiative and she could rally and she could give it, and they did. They got me to Buffalo Valley. Within an hour of being there, I was in Buffalo Valley, and they put up the resources on. I have a medical issue, right? So, and I had to go to the doctor. My doctor was closed over the weekend. They put me up for the entire weekend, took care of me, gave me shoes on my feet, gave me clothes to wear. They've been there with me for years and years. I've got my mother is an absolute angel, and I know that this lady and what she does for the community, she's the mother to everybody, and I'm put side by side with my mother. I don't know anybody else in my life that can go toe to toe with my mother in my heart. It's this lady. So that's all I've got.
That's true.
Hello, first I'd like to apologize for wearing that. I've not had a chance to get a haircut. Hello, my name is Paul Harden. Through life challenges, I became an addict, but now I'm in recovery. I went to jail, went to rehab. I was looking at 30 years in jail for having heroin on me in a state park. I got arrested after that. I went to rehab, went back to court, and I got nothing. No time in jail or probation. I got saved, went to church, got stronger in faith. During that time, I volunteered at Next Step Initiative. I was still homeless, but Miss Addie would pick me up and help me up the center. She left me a phone so she could keep in touch with me. The center was part of my journey to where I am today. Vestal United Methodist Church wants to partner with Next Step to assist our church and we do outreach. I'm no longer homeless. I have a vehicle and I'm a believer in my church. At Vestal United Methodist Church, I love my church. I'm over hospitality in the warming scene. On Sunday, for worship, I write and read the morning prayer. I read a devotional and quote 3 scriptures from the Bible. Next Step was a part of my recovery. The center saved lives, and it was part of saving my life. These people you see here are no longer here, but I am. The center works. It gives hope. This June, I'll be 3 years clean. Thank you for your time, but there's one more thing I want to say. I'd like to say, out of all the voices I heard in here today, yours spoke to me when you said the word transparency, because it's what our nation desperately needs today. So,
Any other public comment?
I grew up in a really well-off family, and it's really up until the last night, I wasn't statistically what somebody would think that addiction would come from. I lost my mom in 2009, and within 30 days, I was strung out. The only thing that fixed my broken heart was losing my mom and everything I knew about life. The only thing that could kill was opiates. I had hurt my back in high school, and the demonic settlers became part of my life when I was prescribed medication I've never had. So I was led into an opiate-filled comfort that was the only thing that would help me. I found myself on the streets and about 8 years ago, and I didn't want to be alive. I was ashamed. I was disgusted, and I missed my mom more than anything in the world. And I met Miss Addie when she pulled into a parking lot because she saw me walking, and she got out. She had a hug spaghetti, and she gave me a hug. And the second that I hugged her, it was like everything just unleashed, and that hug saved my life. And I knew that, there was still good in the world. And when people think of grants, they think that it's associated with money. And this isn't about money, it's about the millions of lives that are saved with harm reduction. And the help that Ms. Addie was able to do with the grant and help people pay for medically assisted treatment for people on opioids that need that little extra help. I go to a methadone clinic and without methadone, I never would have been able to stay sober. I have almost a year April 1st. And it was just a bill of when my insurance lapsed for just 1 month, and it's $495 that I never would have been able to afford, and most people can't. And without that medication, I would have been back on the streets with the needle and I'm doing that and dying like all those people on the pictures around our necks and then green puffs. And at the beginning of the service, we took a moment to pause and pray for the people that did make it. And that's awesome. A lot of people like us did make it when people would have bet their lives that I never would have. And I think we need to take a moment of silence to remember the ones that aren't going to make it, the ones that are immediately going to die when the strength is taken away, because that's a fact. And it's stoppable. And I'm glad that I can be here because it shows me that today I'm reliable. She called me and wanted me to come help, and I'm reliable, and I came and I gave my word, and 4 months in eviction, that wouldn't be the case. So I feel proud of who I am today and how far I've made it, and that I could be here, and I hope that somehow that, something else happens with Miss Eddie's thing, because I wish you all could see the lives that she's has saved and the people that you need to go through.
thank you. Thank you.
My name is Neil Eagle. I'm 25 years old. And before all this, I was on my addiction of no breast pills. And that's all I felt about all day, every day. I lost my kids over it and everything. And I just got off a 7-year toxic relationship. So yeah, so that could mess my head up and go back on the streets and do something more. No, I'm a fuck up, rapping today. I try to get back up because somebody saw me blood my brother. And my brother works at this facility, and, he, you know, he was way worse than me back then, so it gives me motivation to work because to see this kid doing it, you know. And I don't know, it's not sweet with people, but it's okay, you know. But yeah, so, what motivates me to, you know, to stay good, stay, nice to meet, is to see my brother working, doing what's right. And that got me thinking there is hope out there, you know? And there's a lot of kids in my age that it's like a recycling, you know, older people to younger people, and it keeps happening over and over and over again. And we just want to show people love, and there is love out there. And maybe talks to people that don't love people, but people like us that do love people, we try to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Danielle Nelson, and I'm in recovery. I just wanted to say that I would be here if it wasn't Miss Addie and her organization and all the love that puts out on the streets. We lost our parents, and Miss Addie kind of just stepped in, no matter how many mistakes we made, and no matter how many times it took. There were several times that I had to go through it before everything started coming together, and everything that Miss Addie and the love that she has for all of us does save lives, and I'm very thankful for this.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm real nervous, I ain't gonna say a lot, but I'm just gonna say regardless of what happened, I'm not gonna stop. And I'm real young, 21, I struggled with her at 18, but like today with her help, I have 2 kids, an apartment, a house, a license, and myself. And we're not gonna stop, we're not gonna give up. And it is what it is, you know. We're gonna continue to push and fight, and help kids up in the streets. Yes. I'm anxious, sir. Great. Your first, I've been from taking homes with just affirm your courage and your strength and talent, and stand to the work that you do. So kudos for that reckless and passion for the essence. And my specific question, or something I just want the council to think of, is, you know, I know from the perspective contracts or what they are, in terms of when they get executed, but as you were having the discussion about rollover of plan cycle, one of the things I just think about is from the time of awarding the letter of intent for award to the time that puts the contracts together, to the time that we execute can run from anywhere from 3 to 6, sometimes 9 months. And that inherently suggests that somebody, I'm gonna have to request the loan and roll the fund, because you get a 2-year cycle, you're almost 9 months before you can start the work. You can start before you have an executed contract in front of you. So that's just something to think about as you're looking at policy, as you're looking at the guidelines that you put in place to how funds get run. There's an inherent delay in the work getting started, which is going to lead to an inherent delay in the funds being expended. So how we can think about that, that's something I want to bring attention to.
Other comments in the room? Yeah.
I also want to read my name is Leanne Freeman-Williard. I'm one of the vice presidents for the Helen Rossi Camp Center, and my comments are really around the cycle pre-funding. And I'll make this pretty brief. I first want to say thank you. We were incredibly fortunate and blessed to be able to receive a significant amount of funding in cycle 1. And for us, as a point of reference, we provide services anywhere from Chattanooga all the way up to Morristown. So we have a very large geographical reach, and we were awarded 4 very distinct and different programs around treatment program education. So with the impact on cycle 3 limitations, I would just want to bring to your attention that with the limitations on the number of awards an agency now can apply for, as well as the amount and cap that's on those awards, even for us, the Ag Center, if we happen to be awarded, it would significantly reduce treatment programming that we rolled out in cycle 1. I think for
for consideration, I would just ask that the council consider for larger organizations or organizations that with that stronger reach, that they consider a different, approach, maybe for renewal applications. We were not sure if the cycle 3 funding were grant programs or if there was a different process for cycle 1 renewal, and funding for continuation. So I'd offer that as a ask, and then I would also see if community agencies would be given some consideration, like other colleges and universities and state departments, where if they're different departments, they can request multiple funding and receive awards for multiple funding.
Thank you. Further comments in the room? Yes.
I think it's just that, like, house kind of apartment. I'm actually, my funded opposition is 23, so I funded our 3 positions actually received the Johns Hopkins, what I do is I provide services to Justice Department and luckily that position is coming into a program. And there's work, we provide integration training for the Justice Department business as they plan to back up. That includes placing them into treatment, taking on him, monitoring court dates, coordinating trainings, and providing vibrant services. So I just wanted to thank you all for all of your work. And I understand that our state recidivism rate runs about 30%, and our program recidivism rate is running 8%.
Wow.
Yes, this program started in October 2024, and it's still running, and it is fine. Having made it out. So I'll need to thank
I'm Addie from Next Up Initiative. I think, one of the things I want to say is, that these are my kids, by the way, 3 kids and my dad. I guess what I want to say is that I'm afraid for the people because we're losing this grant, we have several people who we are paying for their mattress right now. We pay their premium so that they can keep going. I'm afraid what's going to happen to them because I've experienced where they didn't have money before and they get dropped off of their MAC clinics. And there's a horrible, horrible detox to that. And a lot of them are going to run back into the streets and do fentanyl, and we will see a string of deaths. I'm afraid of that. And if anybody has a solution, maybe even suggest to somebody else that they pick people up, because this is real serious stuff we're doing here. I understand that we aren't good enough or no, don't have confidence in the grant. That's what I was told. We did try our best and we did conform and learn as much as we could, and we appreciate all the stuff we learned from y'all. We are a small grassroots agency. We never had a big grant like this, so we appreciate the education, but we're kind of not understanding why we can't still keep getting that education to do better in order to be able. But my biggest concern isn't for me, isn't for the paychecks, it's for the people that some will die. And I don't know what to do with that. I just can't walk away from that. If anybody has suggestions later, please bring it to me. Thank you.
Further comments to the room? Ray, do you have any more comments online?
I have one hand up, but it was put down to the best that I can tell. David Sappington, can you tell anything? Can you see if there are any hands up?
I see the issue.
Okay, Nathan sees none.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure I'm reading WebEx correctly. So there are no hands up online.
Okay, that closes the public comment. Our next Opioid Abatement Council meeting will be June 2nd in Jackson, Tennessee, location to be determined. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Quick exchange, give it to them.
Swan song.
All right, Shane. Second? Wayne? Given? Seconded
Acclamation.
by acclamation. All in favor? We are adjourned.
Yes, sure, exactly. I think.